Good Freedom Friday, America. It is the American Conservative. I'm back with you using my good friend John Hancock's Facebook page so that I can put some material out to you that I think is long overdue and we shouldn't waste a lot of time. I'm feeling in a great mood this Friday evening. I'm sitting out here in the front of the garage, as you can see by the mess behind me. And just a couple things burning on my mind recently. So you've got all this vaccine mandate nonsense that's going on. Of course, you can't get any federal court to step in the way. And federal judges, you're expecting way too much out of these folks if you really think that they are going to follow the law and not which way the wind's blowing. And that's very true of every court, including the Supreme Court. Pretty much with the exception of, I would say, Justice Alito, the late Justice Scalia, and Justice Clarence Thomas. Even at that level in the Supreme Court, the courts are nothing more than the farmer sticking his pinky in his mouth, holding it up to see which way the wind's blowing. And that's a tale as old as time. That's just the way it is. But you've got all these mandates going on. You've got Pfizer. If spend any amount of time watching the cable news network and pay attention and watch Pfizer, how many of these segments on CNN they sponsor. It's a little bit frightening to see how much interest Pfizer has in sponsoring the same media outlets or toilets, as the case may be, pushing these vaccine mandates. And, gee, what do they have to gain? Oh, I don't know. They make the vaccine. Now, let's back up a little bit. I've got the vaccine. I'm not anti-vaccine, but there certainly is some certain level of conspiracy or whatever else you want to call it, of these big pharma groups pushing their vaccine through the left arm, or the only arm of the media, as the case may be, down on us. So now you've got, everybody's got their vaccine. Now they're pushing boosters. Got to get them boosters. Got to get those boosters. Now they're pushing the vaccine on children, and they're trying to get their needles into the arms of our children. Okay, let's back up just a little bit here. I think in the state of Utah, which most of my viewers are probably going to be from, there was somewhere in the neighborhood of single digits of kids ranging from 1 to 9, I think the study said, that had actually succumbed to this disease. So let's not play statistical games, folks. Let's drop the nonsense from the CDC and the Utah Department of Health following lockstep with the CDC and using fear-mongering to get our kids out there to get vaccines that nobody knows what the long-term results are of side effects of these vaccines, because these vaccines haven't been around long-term. I mean, you're talking 2 years at best for somebody that got them in the very early clinical stages. Nobody knows what's going to happen with these things, and I don't propose that anybody's going to grow a Popeye's forearm out of their forehead, but at the same time, nobody knows. And so now that, Big Pharma, they've got their next target audience out there, and it's so funny from these socialist communist pigs on the left that they can sit back and pretend like this is okay. We're 5 minutes ago, they were talking about capitalism is so bad, capitalist, Big Pharma. Well, gee, now they sure made strange bedfellows, didn't they? Well, it goes to show you that the left are not hypocrites. The left are just completely crooked. They're corrupt. They're for sale. Their souls are for sale to the highest bidder, and they use that very well. Look at Nancy Pelosi. Look how much money she's made as Speaker of the House and her time in Congress, from her insider trading and getting paid off with her special deals that she makes with certain people. She knows what side her bread's buttered on, and don't think for 1 minute that she won't sell you out if it makes her a dime richer. So back to the vaccine thing. They're going crazy about everybody's got to get these vaccines. Dr. Fauci wants you to get the vaccine. let's pause for just a moment, okay? Because now they're pushing them on our kids. They were pushing them on us. They were pushing the second dose on us. They still are. And they're using threat of law, threat of force at the end of the barrel of a gun, which is essentially what the force of law means when it comes down to brass tacks, for everybody to get these vaccines. Back up just a little bit. Back up to the last little bit that Trump was in office, and you had the same people on the left frantically screaming about they wouldn't trust a vaccine that came so fast. First of all, they predicted that there's no way they could make a vaccine that fast. Then when the vaccine came that fast, they went on to pontificate about how they would not use the vaccine. It would be very dangerous to do so. And if Trump had anything to do with it, they quite frankly wouldn't trust it. And they were very, very vocal about this. This wonderful thing called the World Wide Web, the interweb. You can go onto YouTube or any other source and go back and Google some of the things that these same knucklehead communist maniacs were screaming back then. They wouldn't trust it. It couldn't be done. Then take the next step. Okay, so January rolls around. Of course, we've got the one things that the degenerate left fixates on, and that's the civil unrest and the riots, which is funny that they call that insurgents, civil unrest, violent mobs, all the stuff that are concerned about it. Well, it's funny because they were not one bit concerned when Portland and Minneapolis and any of these other big cities were burning to the ground at the hand of organized crime under the guise of Black Lives Matter. They never once mentioned those terms. Matter of fact, the left, the media went very far out of their way to spin it to say that they were absolutely would call them anything but mobs, but rioters, but insurgents, but domestic terrorists. Well, they call it domestic terrorists people that go to their kids' schools that are concerned about the literary works they're giving, but that's another story for another time. Going back to where I started heading with this is go back January after the election. You get the transition of government. The vaccine starts to come out. Now it's out of its clinical trials. Now the vaccine's rolling out, and they're deciding who, when, where they're going to disperse this vaccine to. And of course, naturally, it turns to first responders, people in the medical field, people in the nursing homes, which, was all great, careful planning. That's all wonderful. But think back hard, and you don't have to think too hard about this, but think back at some of the people that were jumping in line because the fear and the pandemonium about this vaccine and this virus scared them enough that there was people that maybe they had powerful connections, maybe they were connected to the healthcare industry, maybe they were part of some of these pharmaceutical groups, but they were quote unquote jumping the line to get the vaccine, and some of them were paying prices for that. If I remember correctly, at least 5-6 figures had been paid by some of the elite 1%ers and these dangerous capitalists. They did everything but throw the kitchen sink at those people in trying to bring about a huge backlash, if not criminal and civil liability and prosecution for the people that were somewhat, let's say they bought their way into the front of the line. Yep. Now you have folks like Jenny Wilson in Salt Lake, Neville Chamberlain in the governor's office, and some of those mulling the ideas of paying, i.e. bribing their constituents, the citizens, to go out and get the same shot that they were all losing their ever-loving minds over, people jumping the line and getting the shot. Now they're having to bribe it. It goes to show you how mentally unstable the left is in America today. It shouldn't be a surprise because communist socialists, they've always been mentally unstable. You look at the fathers of these: Karl Marx, Joseph Stalin, Adolf Hitler. So none of us should be surprised that these people are crazy, but they're absolutely crazy. Anyway, kind of a fun transition to sit back and watch and chuckle at. The next thing I want to dive into is our buddy Alec Baldwin. Alec Baldwin's got this big mouth that he loves to shoot off. He's the self-proclaimed know-it-all of Hollywood. He knows the in and outs of anything from economics to principles, or the evil principles of capitalist society, and all the way down to whether how he interprets the Constitution, and he's very vocal about being anti Second Amendment. We don't need guns, although he's made his millions off of violence, vile, crude humor in movies, his TV shows. This guy is a filthy piece of work here, and it's very interesting because lo and behold, last night the media was very, very quiet about it at first, and who knows if that was just lack of information getting out. But here's the headline of the article: Sheriff's Office: Alec Baldwin discharged a prop gun that killed a crew member, wounded director. Great job, Alec Baldwin. You blew away your cinematographer, ended his life, and impacted anybody around him forever. You can't unring that bell. This is why I will say, do not ever, 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 ever let some nimwit from Hollywood lecture you on personal responsibility, on Second Amendment issues. They have no moral high ground, period. None. Going back to Alec Baldwin, there was a wonderful screenshot that somebody had saved off his Twitter account. He captioned a still photo from either a dash camera or body camera or a bystander with a cell phone camera of a police shooting. I don't remember all the details of it, but of course he's quick to jump to the very front of the line and say, "I wonder how it must feel to wrongfully kill somebody." Well, I don't know, Alex. How does it feel now? How does it feel? Because it seems to me that you have just done exactly that. And trust you me when I say I don't have any misaligned prophetic intuition to say that this guy's going to spend any amount of time for this, any amount of punishment, criminally. Civilly, he's probably hanging himself out there a little bit, but the chances are they probably aren't going to do anything. This is beside the point, but it's also interesting that before this accidental discharge of a quote-unquote prop gun that seemed very much like a real gun took place, his union stage crew basically walked off, and there was some kind of disturbance that took place, depending on which news source you want to read. And like I say, news source, so whichever propaganda source you want to read, there was some kind of a disturbance. Something happened. The union crew got PO'd, and they walked off the job, and then the non-union crew was brought in. Wouldn't surprise me at all if there's not a whole lot more to this story, as Paul Harvey would say, but take it at its face value. He accidentally discharges a prop gun and kills somebody. Bravo, Mr. Baldwin. I'm so glad that you have spoken to us from your moral high ground of making your money off of portraying violence and slurs and all kinds of nonsense on the silver screen and on the television sets, polluting the minds of the young Americans that are growing up. And boy, you've proven yourself to be a real valuable role model. So with that, certainly a sad deal for the 42-year-old man who lost his life at the hands of an idiot. Um, it's certainly sad for even the gentleman that got wounded. I don't know how bad that was. And I certainly regret what any of his family or their family's friends have to go through. But I'm not going to lose any sleep if they decide to charge Mr. Baldwin Know It All with manslaughter, and he gets to spend the rest of his senior living behind bars. Now, I have no misconception that that's ever going to happen, but as the Everly brothers said, dream. So, anyway, that's all I've got for you today. I'm going to put together some more material. I've kind of been extra busy doing stuff and getting some things finalized in my life. Some big changes coming up, but I wanted to get back out to you, and it dawned on me that I can use my good friend Mr. Hancock's account to push some new material out to you, even though I've been placed in prison for, I think I got 2 weeks left of my sentence. So anyway, shoulders back, chin up. Keep doing the Lord's work, folks. We're moving forward. The Democrats and the liberals are coming unhinged, and the train's going off the tracks. And if we're not there to pick up the pieces, then we're doing ourselves, we're doing our children a huge disservice. So keep fighting the good fight, and we'll see you next time.